Thank you, Darren. Jake, you got a good front row there. Just gather around the fire that isn't a fire. Over the past couple of years, I've been learning how to hunt. That isn't natural in my blood. It came from my wife's side of the family. Is that better, Jim? Thank you. I'm not used to this. But I took it up to spend time with my son Dawson. And my in-laws that I've learning to hunt with, they're not road hunters. They're hikers. And so you get up early in the morning and you put your gun and your backpack over your shoulder and you go off into the bush. And you hike all day looking for deer, chasing them around. My in-laws shoot deer, I chase deer. That's how I'm learning how to hunt. Sometimes the path you choose through the bush takes you to a wonderful, clear, flat plateau, and hiking is easy. Sometimes the path you choose takes you down a very steep and rocky road, and it's not so easy. The nice thing about hunting, though, is at the end of the day, if the GPS is right, I end up back at camp, sitting around a fire, chatting about the deer that I didn't shoot. And life is a little bit like hiking, for those of the guys that went hiking today. Sometimes the path that God takes you down is wide and flat and easy. And then sometimes life changes. And we find that God chooses a different path for us, one that is windy and steep and rocky. Many times that's not the path we wanted, and we want nothing more than to find our way back to that nice flat, open plateau. But God is using that situation to shape us and to make us into the men that He wants us to be. He is using that situation. You know that auto off and on an iPad? Shouldn't be using that today. God uses those experiences to shape us and turn us into the men He wants us to be. Unlike my hunting experience, we do not get to choose the path that God has for us. However, we do get to choose how we're going to respond to that path in front of us. A couple of weeks ago, I made an announcement about this evening. And in church, I mentioned that the men's ministry feels it's important that each guy would have a 3 o'clock in the morning friend. Someone you can call at 3 in the morning when life's path is a little on the rocky side. Someone that you can confide in, someone that can walk through these situations with you. To do that, we need to develop friendships, and that takes time. And that's what this evening is about. We purposely did not over-program this evening. We didn't want to have you doing a whole bunch of stuff. What we wanted you to do is spend time yakking with the guy next to you and getting to know each other. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask Mr. Tim Rourke to come up and join me here. Tim is one of my 3 o'clock in the morning friends. In recent years, the path that God has chosen for Tim has become very steep and rocky. It's not what Tim would have pictured even 5 short years ago. Tim has cancer. What began in his colon has spread to his liver and his lungs. There have been more than a few surgeries and procedures along the way. But Tim has made an amazing impact on those around him. He has chosen to walk the path that God has placed before him, believing that God has a bigger plan than we can possibly see right now. Each of us have our own struggles. For some, it's health. For others, it's a marriage that's struggling, or financial hardship that is crushing. Perhaps it's a child that's rebellious, or your business that is seeing more red than black. For each of us, God has chosen a path for this time in our lives. Our choice is how we're going to trust Him and respond. Will we choose to believe that God loves us and even in these hard times is looking out for us? Or will we choose to become bitter at God? Tim, I know that for you this choice has not always been easy, but please, my friend, come and share with us the journey that God has taken you on. and how it has changed things for you.
If you guys don't mind, I'm going to make this a little less formal. Standing up for this amount of time, probably not a good idea because the entertainment factor of me falling down the hill, probably not so good. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to just turn the bench around and I'm just going to sit on the end of the bench. If that's okay. I tried to tell Bill to leave it where it was, but if you don't mind that, I would appreciate it. So I guess I need to start a little bit, telling you who I am. There's a perception and there's a reality. And I think that that's where I need to start. Yes, I have cancer. I wasn't going to get into that right away. I was going to leave that for a little bit. But what I can tell you is that I'm just a simple guy. I am not a reader. I'm not necessarily a writer, although I'm told that I might be. I don't naturally have an inclination to write. Some people are into journaling, that type of thing. That's not me. I don't read my Bible every day. I probably should, but I don't. I don't have a regular prayer schedule that I follow religiously. I don't. I'm just a guy. Which is kind of funny in a way. God's got a great sense of humor because although I'm not a reader and a writer, he made me a principal of an elementary school. So I don't know if you realize the humor in that, but I'm going to ask you to do something tonight which is going to be a little strange, I think. I need you to suspend a natural inclination. And it started out with the fact that Jeff said I had cancer. I could go to you right now and say to you, I can find 100 guys that are worse off than me. I can equally find 100 guys that are better off than me. It's not about that. Every single person has some kind of a burden that they carry. It could be, Jeff sort of alluded to it before, but it could be a marriage that's crumbling. It could be a child that's gone off the rails. It could be a business that's collapsing. It could be a combination of all those things. It could be an illness like what I'm dealing with. But what I think that I've come to understand is that God's plan is perfect. And even though I have this burden that I don't want, I'll be the first guy to tell you that. If I could be healed tomorrow, I could take it in an instant. So would my family. But that's not it. And we have an opportunity to participate in God's perfect plan, even with our burdens. And I think that it's really important that we don't get into a comparative piece. Oh, he has cancer, or that business is crumbling, comparatively speaking. My life is nothing like that. It's not it at all. The burden that you may have, you maybe don't have one right now, or maybe you're in the middle of it, or maybe you're coming out the other end of it. But one way or another, that burden is part of God's perfect plan. And I think it's really important that we recognize that we are a part of that plan. It's not Tim's plan. If it was Tim's plan, I'd be healed. It's God's plan. And that's something that I've had to wrestle with. But it is one thing that will not waver from. That's the faith. That's the one piece that I do know that I have. A simple guy. May not have all the other pieces tucked away nicely, but the one part that I will not move away from is that faith. I believe in God. I believe that He sent His Son, that He died on the cross, that He saved me. So, the journey that we're all on. Obviously had a lot of time to reflect. And that's not a natural thing that I do. Something that I've had to train myself to do. But I think that there are some universals that I've come to recognize that can be applied no matter what. No matter what your burden is, no matter where you are in that burden. And that universals, it really boils down to two things, as far as I come to see. And the universal is we have two lenses that we can approach our burden with. I can choose the easier road, which is to turn inward and become self-centered in what I am facing. A very lonely place to be. A place where I can become bitter and angry, or I can make a serious, conscious decision to look outwardly instead. And I really think it only comes down to those two things. You strip away all the other things, all the other factors, and I still think that it comes down to those two things. I think the easier road, becoming self-centered, is not necessarily bad, because there's some things that become self-preservation. You have to do it sometimes just to survive. But I also think that there's a challenge that's involved in that as well. If you can take that lens and broaden it out and start to identify how God is impacting you through the burden that you're carrying right now, I think that you'll quickly come to see God's perfect plan. That understanding is more like that poem Footsteps. I'm sure you've all seen it, where it talks about how God's carrying when there's only one set of footprints. And let me tell you, there's been lots of that, especially over the last few months. But I still think that harder path, that looking outward, is the key point to this. And the reason why I bring it up, and I'm harping on it, if you want to call it that, is that